So, you've done your Agile implementation and you tackled the first three elements of it. What else is there? So in part 2, I should cover some of the other things you can fix around your Agile implementation. User stories, estimation, planning poker, and sprint ready and sprint planning statuses of stories. So what do we mean? User stories, start there. They're the lifeblood of the Agile process, or maybe communication is a lifeblood. But either way, user stories are a bedrock of delivery, so we need to get them right. Make sure that you're clear on what is a tech story and what is a user story. Tech stories will be created by developers. User stories will be created by the business or product owners. User stories should meet the standard of conveying the story as something a customer or other persona does, what they want to achieve, and the ultimate goal. So as a customer, I want to see my order history so that I can see what I've bought in the past. It should also have acceptance criteria in there, something to test against, the business acceptance criteria. And it must be fully contained, without key information scattered across other stories. Technical stories themselves can have more leeway. They should still be self-contained, and they should really have a description of how to be tested. But they're really for the developers to carry out work that isn't mandated really by the product owner themselves. So there is a little bit more leeway in that. The problem is that a lot of stories just get treated as technical stories, when in fact they should be written from a product owner's perspective. Estimation, being estimation ready and planning poker. Now, make sure you involve the full team in the planning poker session. Try to make sure that the tickets that come into the planning poker session are what I would call estimation ready, i.e. there's enough information in there to make an estimate in the room. Otherwise, you shouldn't be bringing it along because you're wasting people's time. If your team can't understand story points, then move back to time estimates, days, half days, that and the like. But work on moving your team to story points as soon as possible. And further on story points, when you start using them, you want to use Fibonacci series. So story points should be a 1, 3, 5, 8 or 13 points. Don't let them get bigger than 13 points and break them down if they are larger than that. Stories should be something that can be completed within sprint, and it might take 2 or 3 days to do maybe a 5-point or an 8-point story. But certainly, whatever the story, it should be something that can be completed within 2 or 3 days, and it should be something that can be completed certainly within a sprint. Also, allow at least an hour for planning poker, maybe even 2. Now, that's about estimation ready. How about sprint ready and sprint planning ready? So, sprint planning session might happen at the end of planning poker. You might roll straight into it. It should have the Scrum Master, lead developer, and the product owner there as a minimum. The tickets should be sprint planning ready, i.e. they should be estimated from a planning poker session. You shouldn't be estimating them on the fly when you're putting them into the sprint. When you start the sprint, they should be sprint ready. That means that there is enough information in the ticket to allow the developer to get on with the work straight away. They're not relying on a catch-up session with the product owner before they can do anything. Now, it's okay to have a little bit of that, but you've got to make sure that the majority of your tickets can just be picked up and run with by the developer. Otherwise, you're not putting enough detail in there. They are not what I would call sprint ready. So all those things are to basically build up the speed, the flexibility, take away the waste and the blockers from the team.